Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is the show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know exactly what to do. Like and subscribe on YouTube, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, 5-star review, and say some nice stuff about me wherever you're allowed, Spotify, Apple, anywhere. We would appreciate it. Today, my incredible guest, I've Ben Truman. He's the co-founder of Media Troopers, and candidly, a partner of mine for many years at this point. 2 years, I think we're going on. Ben, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Thanks, Michael, for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. Excited to learn a little bit more about your business. I kind of know how it goes, but excited to see the deep dive into the brain behind all of this. But Ben, before we get into all that fun stuff, the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Oh, man, I grew up outside Washington, D.C. Sadly, a longtime Commanders fan. But, obviously growing up in that environment, playing sports when you're a kid, and then I just have genetic issues, which means I don't get very tall. So I was never going to be a pro athlete, but I love sports and continue to throughout my wonderful journey in the sports betting world, to continue to enjoy and I love all sports, which is a little bit rare. I go everything from NFL all the way down to NASCAR sometimes.
There you go, man. Yeah, you got to fill up the calendar, right? Like I'll pretty much watch anything at this point, especially if there's playoffs on. I'll watch NASCAR, like those last 10 races of the year. I'll watch those, at least like the last 50 laps maybe. It's drama, it's real life, right? We don't have to watch the Kardashians. We got people running into each other on a track going 200 miles an hour. That's pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's I was watching ping pong and table tennis and all this stuff during COVID. So yeah, anything that's sports related, I'll tend to flip it on and watch it.
I love it. I think marble racing, that was another one of the big ones. But yeah, COVID was crazy. Is an interesting time, right? So with that, the sports betting was legalized in 2018, but I feel like in 2020 is really when it started to pop off a little bit more. People were stuck inside, for many months. We had all the bubble seasons. We had the MLB going to their shortened season, the NHL, the NBA, right? And then we had the NFL come back, and we weren't supposed to, allowed, whatever you want to say. We weren't really supposed to go out and do things. So we had not much, but we all got a couple dollars. We got a couple stimmies here and there. We had a couple extra bucks to throw around. So let's throw 10, 20, 30, $100 on the game, see what happens, right? So I feel like that time really helped sports betting go off a little bit. And as you said, you work in sports betting, and we'll get to Media Troopers in a second. But I guess you've been in this space for a little while now. With the repeal of PASPA in 2018, did you expect this big of an expansion and this big of a kind of takeover from the sports betting landscape into kind of just normal culture at this point?
I don't think anybody did. I mean, if you would have said to me 5 years ago Disney might be getting into sports betting, I would have told you were crazy. Mm-hmm. Here's an organization, Mickey Mouse, who was not going to let you sports bet. And I happen to be a fan of the Dan Le Batard show, so listening to it on ESPN, and how much they were railing against sports betting. They were for sports betting, everybody was against sports betting, and then here you had COVID, and that just kind of propelled everything, much faster. I don't think anybody expected it to do what it did. But, the ball is, as they like to say, the ball's rolling down the hill there. I'm not quite sure anything's going to stop it.
At this point, no. I mean, there's 2 states we think might not ever legalize, Utah and Hawaii, right? All pretty much all the other 48 are going to get there at some point, some way, shape, or form. I also think, going back to the COVID point, right? The tax amount, the tax dollars play a major, major piece of this. So specifically in New York, right, you're looking at a 51% tax rate for an operator, meaning 51%. It's a revenue share. That's not a tax rate. It's a revenue share at that point, which is just ridiculous. But the operators all signed off on it. Now they're crying, but they all signed off on it, so I don't feel bad for any of them. But because so much money was spent in taxes during COVID, especially with stimulus checks and unemployment, states had to find a quick way where you could kind of just flip a light switch and say, well, we just found $100 million. That was pretty easy, right? You put together a team of people, you do some studies, you kind of make sure that some of the money's going to education, but, we all can be honest about this, right? And I think, yeah, you're right. There was a very quick point in COVID that everybody kind of realized we can make a lot of money really quickly Why are we not doing this? New Jersey made $450 million over the span of 3 or 4 years. Why not us?
Yeah, I think you see it specifically, and what's interesting is I spent a lot of time in New York, and they're fighting over the casino licenses now. If you had told any of us New York was Caesars was going to put a sports book or try to put a sports book in Times Square and a casino, we would have told you were crazy. But now it looks like Caesars will get a sports book in Times Square. And just look at the money that New York's made in the first year. I mean, the first half, I think they were $350 million. I might be a little bit off on that number in tax dollars. But, every other state is kind of looking around and saying, well, how do I get that piece of chunk of money? And, I would say Nevada is probably the third state which may never go mobile. Obviously, they have sports betting, but every other state is moving fairly quickly. I think the interesting thing here is with the casino side and seeing what's happening in Jersey and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, by the way, just went past New Jersey in the amount of GGR in tax dollars this past month or two. I think that's the next phase. New York will go, and then Massachusetts and all these other states, but sports betting is kind of the gateway, and I think everybody, from our perspective, for the upcoming years, looking at Texas, obviously they have that weird kind of relationship where they meet once every 2 years, and then of course the Seminoles down in Florida and what's going on with that. But yeah, most of these big states will drop, except for California. Obviously, we'll all have to wait around probably until 2026, but for the most part, I think everybody will go sports betting, and it's crazy. The money is crazy. I mean, nobody can doubt that.
Exactly. The money is absolutely crazy, but stop me when you've heard California mess something up, right? Like, come on, the joke writes itself. So I don't even feel good about making it, right? But no, it is incredible. And for people out there that are listening, that you see all these sports betting commercials if you're in one of these states, right? I'm in New Jersey, been getting hit over the head with these things since 2018. It's almost it's to the point where I already get phased it out, right? I work in the industry and I've already kind of phased it out. Like, I'm supposed to be paying attention, seeing how other companies are doing it, but at this point it's just white noise, unfortunately. And the thing about sports betting is that's not where the money is. You're 100% correct, Ben. Like, the money's actually in the casino side of things. The amount of money that these states are making, Michigan, Pennsylvania, you brought up, New Jersey, I think New Hampshire you can play. There's a couple states that allow for casino licenses, and you'll see if you look up, all these reports are online and legal, and you can check them out. Any state that has casino, the GGR, the gross gaming revenue, as Ben referred to it, is significantly higher on the casino side of things. So they want to get people in through sports betting because you love your team and you want to put $100 on the game, but they really just kind of want you to play blackjack for like 2 straight hours because that's how they make money. They want you to play slots, actually. That's how they make the money. And I guess seeing that and realizing that from your perspective, how do you think that's going to potentially change, I guess, the rollout of these states? Is it mostly going to be sports betting and then, hey, a couple years later, let's tack on casino, a couple extra dollars in the bucket. Why not, right?
I definitely, sports betting is a gateway for a lot of these states. You look at some states, most states have land-based casinos. So, but some states don't. So you'll see sports betting going first, everybody will be happy, and then slowly you'll see this trickle of iGaming and casino in there. But it's always sports betting first.
I like it more. I play blackjack every once in a while, but come on. I'd rather put, $20-$30 on the Giants to actually make the playoffs. That'd be cool. What if they did? Cross your fingers.
Well, I think you guys are okay. I mean, you did beat my team, last week, so I think you guys are in. But we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I've seen collapses, man. I'm a Mets fan, too, so I've seen some pretty incredible collapses in my life. Giants aren't technically in yet. They need to win. We don't need to get into the weeds of that. I do want to talk about you and Media Troopers and understanding. So tell us a little bit about your business, what you guys do, and how you really kind of work in this sports betting space.
So actually myself, I started in Europe.
Okay.
So I started in the gaming industry in Europe with my business partner, we've been in the industry since early 2000s. So we started in Europe, and then kind of learning the UK market and horse racing, and I switch between soccer and football all the time, but we'll call it soccer for this. Learning how sports roll and just learning, odds and everything else. And then once we saw sports betting come into the U.S., both him and myself decided, here, we're going to pivot and bring our knowledge and expertise. And what we do is different from, a lot of our competitors. We're much more focused on, acquisition and bringing in players and educating players when it comes for the books. And kind of taking what we learned from all those years in Europe and Asia and places like this, and then bringing it into the U.S. And so that really helps us, and we've built a great team over the past 4 years, trying to help the books understand this. Because, we find that in America, a lot of times you think a TV commercial is your best way to energize your fans, but when you look at the numbers, most people want to sit on their couch. And I think that the biggest question here is, when will the TV ads, as you said yourself, Michael, the TV ads, they just turn you off. So what we do is we really focus on kind of that educational online piece, bringing players in via various channels, making sure, and this is a big talk in the industry today, making sure that we're bringing somebody who can actually, place a bet. How do we, I hate to call people out by names, but if you see Barstool just, and some of the stuff they do, they just got in trouble, and they keep getting in trouble with the regulators. How do you make sure that that person is over 21, can actually do it, isn't going to, hurt themselves? So we do a very good job of educating the players, bringing good players, making sure that the people that we're bringing into the sports book, and, for yourself, I'll plug you guys, Profit Exchange. These people are over the age of 21. They should be doing this. I think that's a big part of the game of the industry right now, is how do you make sure? So, Media Troopers, we really focus on driving good clients to the books, but also making sure that these people are, one, educated, and two, responsible gaming. That they're able to responsibly gamble, and that's a little bit different. Most of the time, the guys you see, they have websites, or if you look at the New York Post, they have this section on sports betting. But how do you know a 16-year-old isn't reading the New York Post? So at Media Troopers, we've really focused on making sure that our players are over 21, they know what they're doing, they understand this, even if they're a novice. I think you'll know this yourself. Most people, they only place a handful of bets a year. I like to say, even my mother, who doesn't like sports betting, will bet on the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
So you're bringing a lot of people like that, but we're still educating a lot of people in the U.S.
Yeah, and I think the education aspect is really interesting, right? And you made a couple points, so I want to talk about something a little bit more about your differentiation. I want to talk about your time in Europe a bit, but I do want to hammer home this education piece. I think it's really important that I personally went to Arizona to help on the day that Caesars Sportsbook and all the other sportsbooks launched when I was with Caesars, when they launched in the state of Arizona. So I was literally hand-to-hand combat. I was talking to people, boots on the ground, telling them, here, this is how you sign up. Here, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is how we're doing it. And I ran into so many people that had no idea what they were doing, but they were so excited to bet on sports. They didn't know what they were like. It was the Dallas-Tampa Bay game, the first one a couple years ago when it didn't suck. This last one was terrible, but the one a couple years ago, and it was like Tampa Bay by 8 or 9, and the spread just kept going up, and up. And I signed up some guy earlier in the day. Then we were at a bar, and he just happened to be there again. He's like, I was like, hey man, did you have fun? Like, it's just we're doing this for entertainment, right? He's like, yeah, it was fun. I lost my first bet. I had Dallas plus 8.5, and I was like, no, that means you won. Dallas only lost by 3. That means you won plus 8.5. And I explained to him how it worked, and he was like, oh, I had no idea. And like, that's kind of when it hit me, and I was like, how many people are out there like this guy that are just have no idea what's going on? And it's kind of scary, honestly, that the fact that it's so easily and widely accessible now, and there's very little education. So we appreciate you and what you do, but there's very little education on just the basics. What does minus 110 mean? What is a spread? What is a money line? What is a total? Player props are pretty easy, over and under, catches, yards, right? We can kind of get that, but it's just some of these general things that, you and I being in the industry, much much longer than I've been. I won't compare myself to you. But just some of these things that are so easy to us are so difficult to some of these people. How do you see that kind of playing out? Because we're already starting to hear some regulators be like, wait a second, like, are you guys doing anything to help? Because this is kind of a problem.
It's just going to take time. We saw it in the UK, we saw it in Germany and countries like this. It just takes time. I was having lunch with a friend. He's a big crypto guy and programmer and all this stuff. And I pulled out my phone. I don't remember I'm pretty sure I was gambling on the Wizards, like my $5, $10 bet, just so I watched the game. And he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm placing a bet." He goes, "You can bet legally?" And I said, "You literally live in New York City. You walk around all the time. You also are an online guy. What do you mean? You don't know you can bet?" And here's a guy who's very well educated and not even knowing it. I think the last numbers are $7 to $10 billion in the black market. So us as an industry, we need to figure out how to get those people over, and also work with the regulators not to cut everything off, because think about how much money is in the black market and then how much needs to come to the white. I think the last number was maybe 20% of people do truly understand that they can bet online. It's just going to take us time to educate these people and have them understand, here's how you do it, here's what a spread is, here's what a money line is. If the books just put, who's going to win a game, everybody would know that. But when you see numbers like 110, 115, 130, you have no idea what that means. And, that's kind of the part where we need to start educating. Most of the books aren't there yet. It's still a land grab in the sense of, let's go get 20% market share. But at some point it will have to turn, and it's started to turn. And how do I place a bet? How does my product get better? What is a money line? Everybody knows what a parlay is.
Yeah,
I think
right.
it's the most bet on thing in the United States is a parlay. But what's a money line? What's a spread? These are the things that will take time, and we're seeing growth, but we're still 5-6 years away.
Oh yeah, and again,
Probably stay in the market where it needs to be.
in New Jersey alone, right? We've been live for only 4 years, coming up on 5 here in a couple months, right? And so New York's hasn't even been live for a year. Arizona's only been live for a year and change. Ohio's going live in a couple days, so I hope you're excited and you're nice and busy here recording on the 27th of December.
Yeah.
But there's so many opportunities, and yeah, it is just a land grab at this point, and it's easier to have Kevin Hart scream about underdogs and overdogs. Every time I hear that commercial, it pisses me off, because you're literally making your customers stupider, because you're not actually explaining to them an overdog isn't a thing. Like, I thought it might be a funny joke, but it sounds ridiculous. And anyone in the industry, I hope I'm not the only one that feels this way, you're literally just making people stupider because you're not explaining what an underdog is versus a favorite, which is the actual terminology for it. And now you're combining way too many terms and you're making people stupider. I don't know, maybe it's just me ranting a little bit, but that always makes me a little angry. And your time in Europe specifically, as you said, we're a couple years away from really being able to fully educate the market. What was it like, and when did you start to kind of see the tide turn from $2,000 offers and $3,000 offers to, here's $50, we'll teach you kind of how to bet, and then, from there, if you want to, you can. Because it seems much more tame and less fanaticized, I guess, over in Europe. It's much more just kind of part of culture. And right now, and here in America, it seems like it's like bonkers, off the wall, unnecessarily big at this point.
It took a while. I mean, I wouldn't say the change was until about 2014, and by then the market had been open for almost 15 years. You had a change in the offers and the free bets and things like this. A little bit different is the way that they tax it over there compared to how they tax it in a state like New York, which tax free bets. Over there, it's much different. But you kind of saw this change into the fact of, well, let's try to educate these people. Let's make sure that people understand what's going on. Let's make our products better. Let's make it easier for somebody to work. But it took a long time. It really did. And some of it was pushed by the regulator. Let's not say it wasn't. It's much more of a big brother, and this is a conversation I oftentimes have with people in the American gaming market. And I say, well, you're probably never going to have the big brother aspect of big government, but you will have the regulator come down. In fact, in New York State, one of the regulators is putting out a bill against free bets. Now, nothing's going to happen with it, but it's just the fact that it's there is kind of telling that how there will be a change in the offers, and we will be looking for more seasoned people or people who understand the market. But it will take a time. It's still the land grab, and how many Caesars used. What were you when you were there? You guys were giving out $2,000.
$3,000. $3,000.
You ask people on the other side of the Atlantic, and they're like $3,000. That's insane. But still to this day, you get $1,000. So you got years until that changes.
Yeah, and of course, I think the dollars right behind this. We have Caesars, we have Flutter Entertainment, DraftKings. Like, these companies are kind of just printing money, for lack of a better term, and are kind of able to do this. And I feel like with the consolidation is going to be coming as well, right? New Jersey alone has 20-something books, Profit Exchange technically being one of them, which, hey, got to rip my own company. I love what I do. I love who I do it with. I mean, at some point, though, like, I've been in this, again, I've been in this industry for multiple years. We're coming up on 3 years pretty soon. I've been in this state for a very long time. I probably couldn't tell you over 10 books in New Jersey. How do you think, like, some of these smaller books, these medium-sized books, we've already seen Fubo or Fubu. I never remember which one's the closing company and which one's the brand. We saw MaximBet just fold. When do you think you'll start to see some of this consolidation happen where it's really just going to be like the four main guys and then anyone that can do something a little different?
So I'll tell you this much. I don't think you'll see it. And I'll tell you why. And I keep saying in Europe and the UK, do you know how many books there are in the UK? There's
120. 5,000?
5,000.
Holy shit.
5,000 books. 1% of a market is a very good business. It's just how you go about spending to get that 1%. One of the things we do at Media Troopers, and we'll plug it, is we like to work with a lot of the smaller books, Profit Exchange. We work with a lot of the Native American tribes in the West and all over the country, helping them get into the market, explaining to them, well, you don't need 20% market share to have a very viable business here. If you aim for 3%, 4%, and we have some clients who, that's their goal. So I don't think you'll see the consolidation. I think you'll see some more books open up as we go along. Of course, you'll see the Vandals and the Flutters and the DraftKings and the MGMs and the Caesars continue to take a large market share. But at the end of the day, a 3% business in a state like Pennsylvania can be a very lucrative business. And I also go back to this point. In 2009, the biggest sports book in the UK was William Hill and Ladbrokes. Okay? The biggest sports book today, by far in the UK, is a company called Bet365. But 10 years ago, they weren't even 1%. And today they are by far the largest. So where the market is today is not where the market will be 5 or 10 years from now. And somebody like Betfair in the UK is very similar to Profit Exchange. It's an exchange. It's a little bit of a different product. It was nothing 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and today it's a very good company, a very big brand. So where you are, whoever is small today, they could be a big market leader, 10 years from now. We don't know, and I think we won't see the consolidation. In fact, I know rumblings through the industry of books that are still coming online. We have the guys at Fanatics.
I was going to bring up Fanatics. Yep, they're coming. They got a lot of money.
They got a lot of money. They have a big database. We can go into whether or not we think that will work, because I have my own I have my own ideas that, I think if you look at somebody like Barstool and Penn, where they thought, let's bring in Barstool, and Barstool's going to do everything for us, and, they don't even work with us, and they don't work with anybody. They think Barstool will do it, and they're struggling mightily. I don't think they just, I don't think that's news to anybody in the industry, but, they haven't been able to do it. I think this is kind of the educational piece that Media Troopers brings, and says, well, hold on, guys. Affiliation is 30% of this business, at least. And somebody like Barstool, they have 1% in Arizona. They kind of ask yourself, well, you're Barstool, you should have more, but it's a different world here. So the smaller books will be fine; they'll grow. You have guys in certain states like Maryland, which went live over Thanksgiving. There's some small books there. They're just focusing on Maryland. I think the dark horse for all of us here, Michael, is the Native American books. The guys who haven't entered the market yet, who are still 2, 3, 4 years away, but these guys are massive. I was telling somebody the San Manuel out in California, they have something like 25,000 slot machines. Just think about that for a second.
That's a lot.
That's bigger than it's bigger than any casino in Vegas. So when they get into the market, when these other guys kind of come into the market, I think you should, the FanDuels and the DraftKings and the Caesars of the world, those are the guys that they need to fear. Look, the Seminoles down in Florida, as soon as the Seminoles get rolling, they're going to be a big player. So the consolidation aspect of this, we're far away from that.
I think that's a really interesting way of thinking about it too, right? Because like the books that closed down, it was, hey, we spent $100 million and we didn't make any money. It's like, well, how does that person still have their job? Like at some point, I don't know, at like 20 million, maybe you could be like, what we're doing is not working, guys. Let's try something else. No, let's, quadruple down. Let's get to 100 million before we say, let's turn this thing off. So I think that makes sense. And it's only good for the customer, right? Like it's only good for us, the users. In states like Connecticut, they only allowed 3 books. States like New York, they're only allowing 9 right now. They might add up to 15. But in New Jersey and Maryland and some of these places, it's almost an unlimited number. It's only good for me, right? It's only good for those users, and hey, let's take advantage of it. And as you said, 1% of a market is actually pretty good. It just depends on how you get there. I think that's a really great way of thinking about it. So that's why I have incredible people like you on, Ben. I appreciate it.
No, definitely. And just to your point, look at a state like D.C. or Delaware or Oregon. These are one-book states, and I'm from D.C. originally, from outside D.C. My friends all go to Virginia to gamble.
Well, Gambit, right, in D.C.?
It's I think
it's a
nobody
joke.
here, it's a disaster. And there's no competition. There was supposed to be competition, but, we can say a lot of things about D.C., and I always like to point out they're probably the only city in the country that's ever voted in a mayor who was, convicted of felonies. He got re-voted, so, they are what they are. But then you go to Oregon, which has been a disaster. Or you go to a state like Delaware, which, what's going on there, nobody even knows. And Delaware actually was the first with sports betting before Jersey.
Yep.
But nothing's moved because they're just a one-state monopoly. So I think everybody's learning these one states don't work. We do need the competition. We do need the extra books. You guys at Profit Exchange, you guys offer a different product, which is sometimes better for the user. You have better lines, better spreads. You don't need to necessarily win to win money. And I think these are the important things of why we need more books in more states. And yeah, like you said, New York will go to 15. Michigan will open up more. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and obviously, again, we have to feel out a lot of this stuff and see what makes sense. I mean, I don't think one book ever made sense per state, right? Like New Hampshire, I think is the same thing, just DraftKings, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, that just doesn't make any sense. Like Connecticut, just 3. Like, why are we limiting ourselves to 3 when there's probably 5 or 6 that would make that bid, 10, 12 that would make that bid and make the state better and allow for more competition and more differentiation. Competition breeds excellence. I'm all about that. Again, in a state like New Jersey where we can have a product like Profit Exchange, which I'm very grateful for. If I haven't said that once already, let me say it again. But just the fact that we get to do something different is something pretty cool. And I guess from your point of view, let's talk about Media Troopers a little bit. Like, as you said, what you guys do is a little different in terms of let's educate users. Let's find users that are 21 plus, right? Because dirty little secret, Ben. It's cheaper for you if you find users that are 21 plus than having to deal with the ones that are younger, right? Like it's math. We like to make money here. We're doing this. It's a business podcast. We want to make money. Let's not be silly. What exactly is your advantage that you guys have compared to some of your competition? Because affiliates, for anybody out there that's listening, just to give a quick recap, as Ben said, is 30% of the market. What he means is 30% of acquisition comes from companies that are not the book itself. They're saying, hey, the New York Post, hey, Media Troopers, hey, guy XYZ over here, we'll give you money if you sign someone up for us, right? Like, let's make it super easy so people understand. What is it that you guys are doing that's different that gives you an advantage to be as successful as you guys have been? Especially in my time when we were at Caesars, your numbers were incredible. Don't want to say too much, but good for what you did.
Exactly. You'll get me in trouble with
not trying to do that. Don't you worry. Let's
not do that.
No way.
Look, it's once again, a lot of these guys, the New York Post, guys like that, they're coming and they're asking for a lot of money, or Bear Collective or one of our competitors, and for us, it's not only about educating the players, but also educating the books. We go into a lot of the smaller books where other people don't want to spend their time, and we talk to them and we say, guys, here are the things that we think will work for you. Here are the things that we think will progress you guys forward. You spoke about Maxim and Fubo. They spent hundreds of millions in places where we're all in business here to make money. And I think it's a big thing in the market today is, how do I become profitable? And we're already going there and talking to them and saying, guys, this is how you become profitable. This is how you $1 spend, $1 gain. This is the math here. It's very simple math. And you see a lot of companies kind of moving into the affiliate, what we call performance marketing area, because they can measure those things. So one of the things that really helps us is we're in all the places that you normally wouldn't be. We work with Spotify, we work with, other companies where we're TikTok, where we're able to produce valuable content for the books and then translate that to the consumer, and then the consumer understands what's going on. And then the books come back and say, well, this is great, guys, because we have a good client, a client who understands. So that's one of the things. And the second thing is we like everybody. We like the smaller books as much as we like the bigger books. We love the relationships we have with MGM and DraftKings and FanDuel and Caesars and all these guys, and we value what they do with us. But we also know from our time in Europe, we also like the smaller books. I spend most of my time at the smaller books, and sometimes that's more fun in a sense because we're educating them on how things go. So we'll go in and we'll help them. We'll run an affiliation program for them, or we'll help them run theirs, or we'll give them advice on what they should and shouldn't do. And that's one of the things where we've really found a lot of success in differentiating ourselves is we have all this experience. Let's help you. And we've seen success with some of the smaller books, and we'll name them, out helping them build good clientele. So this is really a differentiator. And for us at Media Troopers, we're always looking for kind of that new angle. Where can we go? Is it, everybody knows about Meta. We all have gotten sick of Meta and, the ads that you see, but what's something new? Where can we go if it's a Spotify? Nobody really realizes, but you as an advertiser can go on Spotify and run your own ads. It's not that expensive. It's actually really, really cheap. It's better than buying from Viacom or somebody else to be on the radio because, listen, we all listen to Spotify. It's that simple. So these are kind of some of the things we're always kind of at the forefront of looking for new ways to drive good clientele to the books.
Yeah, if you weren't going to bring up TikTok, I was going to. If I'm not mistaken, you guys were one of the first handful of accounts that was able to actually promote gambling content in the way you did. So, I mean, kudos and congratulations to you guys. Again, I've always appreciated working with you, smart people. Lifeface especially, let's make sure we give her a shout out. She's the best. Absolutely
She's the
incredible. Just the best. Anytime I see her at a conference, she's wearing the sweetest blazer I've ever seen in my entire life. So always excited for those. But.
Listen, she's much prettier than I am. Much prettier than I am. Much better at her job than I ever will be. She has the patience of a saint, I will oftentimes say, yeah, she's great. I love her, and I love the team we have, and all the guys we've built all over the world. And, that's why we've expanded, into all these other countries and gotten staff, because we're always looking for top talent. And she's by far amazing at what she does.
She is the best, so appreciate her. I would be remiss if I did not give her a shout out. But Ben, this was awesome, man. I sincerely appreciate the conversation about your business, what you do, what you guys do, how you do it, the advantages that you guys have, as well as just the industry. It's just something I've been very interested in, been in it for a while, and it's always fun to just kind of chop it up with someone who's a little bit more veteran than I, that has some good ideas. Because as you said, maybe there is no consolidation. Maybe we actually see more books. We all know Fanatics is coming, especially at least in the industry, but I'm sure not too many people aren't thinking about some of these tribes that when they want to, here's a couple $100 million they can go spend, right, and start to compete.
I'll tell you this much. In Texas, the Cherokees and Jerry Jones have teamed up. They have $1 billion. $1 billion. It's public knowledge. You can find it on the internet. But they're committed $1 billion into the market. I mean, it's
going to do something.
It's Jerry's world, as we all like to say. When he gets in and you see some of these other guys move into the market, man, I don't think you see consolidation.
It's going to be awesome, man. But no, sincerely appreciate it, Ben. One more time, Ben Truman, the co-founder of Media Troopers. Ben, where can we go to find a little bit more information about what you guys are doing? I'll make sure to take all the links and put them in the show notes. But in case, give us the audible.
So yeah, you can go to MediaTroopers.com. You can of course reach out to us on LinkedIn, on all the social platforms. So we'll talk to you. We do a lot of things. Some of it's public, some of it's not. So always just kind of reach out to us, and we'll always talk you through and how we can help you.
I appreciate that. Good stuff. Well, thank you, Ben, for your time. Thank everybody out here for listening. I appreciate it. Time is the only thing we don't get more of. So thank you for giving me some of yours. But other than that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.